Okay, Geometry, Chapter 1, Section 2. This is Example 4. Again, anytime that you're good with this idea, you can skip away and go to the next video. Hopefully this is a pretty easy concept for you. So we want to find AC. Well, AC, here's A and here's C. So we want to find the distance from A all the way over to C. We know from A to B is going to be 3.3. From B to C is going to be 3.3. So it makes sense that if we just took 3.3 and we added it to 3.3, we should end up with our answer. So that should be a 6.6. Now if you want to see it written out the book's way, they're going to say if you take CB, whatever distance that is from C to B, and you add it to the distance from B to A, add it to BA, you should get the distance from C to A. And the distance from CA is the same thing as AC. They're the one and the same. So CB is 3.3. BA is also 3.3. And so you still get the 6.6. And we should put our units on there. Again, no naked numbers. So here is your answer. So 6.6 centimeters on this one. Okay, so we're practicing our fractions also in this case. So you'll need to know how to convert from eighths and halves to be one and the same thing. So again, this is x to y, y to z. We want to find x to z, so we want to find x all the way over to z. What is the full length of this? So if we take this 4 and 5/8 and we add it to this 2 1/2, we should end up with the length of the whole thing, right? Two pieces add up to be the whole. So 4 and 5/8 is good. My common denominator in this case is going to be 8. And 2, and I want my common denominator to be 8, so 2 times 4 give you 8, so 1 times 4 gives you 4. And we are adding. So then we can add straight down, so 5 plus 4 is 9/8, and 4 plus 2 is 6, and that's not simplified. 9/8 is actually going to be 6 plus 1 1/8, right? 9/8 is 1 1/8. So final answer is 7 1/8. Units on this was inches, so I put inches on there. So practicing the idea of betweenness, y is between x and z, so this distance from x to y added to the distance from y to z should give you the distance from x to z. Okay, so then we should be able to work backwards too. If we know the distance from F to D and we know the distance from F to E, we should be able to get back to this distance from D to E. So FE, right, plus ED should be equal to FD. So FE was 11. I don't know what ED is. That's what I'm looking for. And the whole thing should be 14. To get ED by itself, you would subtract 11 from both sides. And so ED is equal to 14 minus 11, which is 3. Units on that is centimeters. Or you can just use your brain a little bit. 11 plus what gives you 14? 11 plus 3 gives you 14, and you're good. That's 3 centimeters there. Either way, 3 centimeters. Okay, same thing. If it's a decimal, it's no big deal. This whole distance is 4 centimeters. M is between L and N. So since it's between, this LM segment plus this MN segment should give you the whole L to N segment. So 4 minus 2.6 should be equal to whatever the distance is from L to M. If you need to write it 4.0 minus 2.6, borrow your 1. So that's going to be 6 goes from 10 4 times. 3 minus 2 is 1, and you get 1.4 centimeters. Final answer, with units, no naked numbers. Okay, same idea, we're back in inches, so it's a little bit more difficult. If you take the whole distance, this 12, You take off this FE, this 2 3/4, you should get the distance from D to E. So if I take 12 and I subtract 2 3/4, and we've got no fraction here, so we're going to have to borrow. So when you borrow 1 from the 12, it becomes 11 4/4. So we're at 11 4/4 minus 2 3/4, and 4/4 minus 3/4 is 1/4, and 11 minus 2 would be 9. So final answer, that's going to be 9 1/4 inch right here. From D to E is 9 1/4 inch. The only thing we're doing is adding and subtracting. We get a little bit more difficult here. It looks way confusing, but these are super easy. Again, U to T plus T to S should be equal to U all the way to S. So we know that ST is 7x, S to T is 7x, we've got that piece, good. S to U, S all the way over to U is 45. So that means this piece here plus this piece over here should be 45. And TU is 5x minus 3, TU 5x minus 3. So if I write this out, my 7x plus my 5x minus 3 should be equal to 45. From there, you're back to a pre-algebra question. 7x plus 5x, 7 plus 5 is 12x, minus 3 equals 45. So combining your like terms first. Then you have to isolate the variable, so you get rid of the subtracting 3, so you add 3 to both sides. So you get 12x is equal to 48. And then you want to divide by 12 on both sides to get the x by itself. And so x is equal to 4. What is it actually asking you for, though? It says find x. Okay, x is 4, and st. So make sure you read the directions. Find x and st. So st is 7x. So st is equal to 7x, which is equal to 28. And do we have units on this? We do not have any units on our number. There's no units in the original problem. So we can just leave our answers at x is 4 and st is 28. Okay, so multiple choice questions, same idea here. Remember from the beginning, whenever I covered vocabulary, hopefully you watched the vocabulary section, these are called tick marks. There are 2 tick marks here and there are 2 tick marks here. Since there's the same number of tick marks, we know that the distance from S to E is the same as the distance from E to G. So that means this distance here and this distance here added together, or times 2 because they're the same, would be equal to down here. If you don't like that, you can put the same variable there, if that'll help you. So you got x plus x is equal to 4 5/8, or 2x is equal to 4 5/8. And yes, when you're given fractions, you're expected to leave things in fractions and work with them that way. To get x by itself, you need to divide by 2. Divide by 2. It might be easier when you're thinking about fractions. Dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. And usually that's easier to deal with fractions when you think of it that way. So this is actually multiplying by 1/2. Multiplying the whole thing by 1/2. And when you read this 4 5/8, so there is an assumed plus sign right there, just so you know that. So this is actually a distributive property. So the 1/2 and the 2 cancel out. Half of 2 is 1, so this just becomes an x here. And then half of 4 is 2, and 1/2 times 5/8, multiply the top, 1 times 5 is 5, and 8 times 2 is 16. You might need to go refresh yourself on your fraction rules if you're kind of rusty on them, because it is assumed knowledge at this point that you know how to manipulate fractions. I'll kind of try to show you on the videos little tricks here and there, and if you've got questions you can always ask them in class. So 2 and 5/16, and our units were inches, and our units here is inches, so it looks like answer D is our answer. Okay, one last example here. Nope, I got two more examples, two more parts on this one. So if you want to find ON, ON is from here all the way to here. Take a moment, see if you can figure it out. Come back whenever you're done to see if you got it right. Okay, if you did this correctly, we don't know this one here. So this one plus that one, so the x plus the 0.5 is going to give you 4.2, if you like writing it that way. Or you can say the 4.2 minus the 0.5 is equal to our distance is ON. If you want to write it that way, you can write it that way. All of these are fine. So 4.2 minus 0.5, which is what you're going to end up doing here. The very first step up on this top one would be to subtract 0.5 from both sides. So 4.2 minus 0.5, and if you have to write it over top of each other, and borrow from the 4, making that into a 3. So 12 minus 5 is 7, so you get 3.7 is equal to ON. Units on that is centimeters, so our answer is B. Okay, last one. Again, if you can pause this and see if you can get it right, and then come back and check your work and see if you got the right answer. Okay, so the way I would do this one, it says AB is 4A plus 10. A to B is 4A plus 10. I've got that in there. B to C is 3A minus 5. B to C is 3 minus 5. And A to C, so this A all the way over to C is 19. So what they're telling you is if you add these two together, you should get the big long part, which is 19. So I've got 4A plus 10. That's an A. And I'm adding that to my 3A minus 5, and that should be equal to the 19. Okay, doing the work. So 4A plus 3A is 7A, combining my like terms. 10 minus 5 is 5. Okay, get the variable by itself, isolate the variable, so I would subtract 5 from both sides of my equal sign. So 7A is equal to 14. And then divide both sides by 7, so A is equal to 2. And if I need to write that step in, I divide it by 7, and I divide it by 7 here. And there's no units on this, so just my answer of A is 2, and here is A is 2 down here. And so that's the final answer, and it only asked you to find A, it didn't ask you to do anything else.